Welcome back, everyone, to the Cancel for Maintenance podcast. If this is your first time joining us, we're a show that takes a behind-the-scenes look into the gritty, non-glamorous life of aircraft maintenance. We share laughs, impart wisdom, all in hopes of giving you a split second's relief in your day to hopefully prevent a mishap. I am your co-host, Six.
I'm MVP.
And our third host, Shoreline, is silently in the back, monitoring our audio, making sure our faces stay fit for radio. Hey, we're back again. 2025. What a time! What a year! What a life so far. And we're only a couple days in.
Yeah, pretty wild when you think about it. I mean, what is it today? It's the 11th.
The 12th, I believe. I think it's
12th. Oh, geez.
I know. We're 12 days in, and we're already half health points already.
Already counting down the days to the next holiday break.
Yes. But in hindsight, though, man, when it comes to holidays, sometimes you almost need a holiday from the holiday, if that makes any sort of sense.
Yeah, I think that's why the first week back in many of our jobs, not all, but many of them they're kind of that slow build, right? Everybody kind of waking up. Not everybody comes back the first week. So it takes a couple of weeks to get, to remember what your job actually was and what you do every day. And then also what projects you were kind of working prior to the end of the year or, waiting, or if you remember, right. And you're waiting for everybody else to remember what they do and respond.
I feel like, one of those cartoons where it has that Model T car where you have to no kidding, crank it to get it warmed up.
Oh yeah,
that's totally me right now. Oh man, awaken the machine spirit, man. It's taking a little while.
Yeah, they're still ready for a longer nap.
Yes, but it's one thing that hasn't taken a break is the challenges that we're currently facing in aircraft maintenance.
Yeah, kind of interesting. There's been a few articles thrown out there by different groups discussing the challenges and coming challenges within the industry.
Yes. And one of the major challenges that we're still seeing, even though we have had, I wouldn't say decent, I just said we had some growth, right? Now, what I mean by some growth is it's still in the single digits as far as percentage is concerned. But hey, something's better than nothing, right? Excuse me.
As long as it's not in the red.
This is true. I mean, it's still in red, but at least it's not as red.
It's the lighter shade.
The lighter shade of red. It went from burgundy to crimson. Oh my God. But one of the big ones is a growing demand for aircraft maintenance. Now, I'll preface that every field in the aviation community has had shortages and are still working through shortages. But I also want, since we're aircraft maintenance related, we're going to mention that aircraft maintenance is still having a demand. And the industry itself has seen a significant increase in travel and upcoming maintenance, right? For those who are a little bit uneducated, all aircraft have a scheduled list of inspections, kind of like your car, where as these maintenance come up, you have to bring them in the hangar and you got to do certain things to it before you can kick it back out again. Well, we all know that we've had a supply chain shortage. We've all had some aircraft shortages. We've had some pilot shortages and so far and so forth. So a lot of these things are piling up. And the supply chain stuff has yet to actually catch up to a lot of this. So as these planes pile up, as this maintenance accumulates, we're finding less supply than what the demand is asking for, if that makes any sort of sense.
Well, I think it's still issues stemming back from the pandemic days.
Yes.
And hopefully, everybody's talking about the next pandemic. You heard that right, pandemic. Coming along in the next year or whatever. But let's hope not. And we're still reeling from the issues from the last one. Certain manufacturers are single source items for a lot of different companies use the same product that's all single source vendor. And obviously during the pandemic times, those went on a reduced production capability that still hasn't fully come back into full rate production. And honestly, not sure if it will at this point. I think companies, right, when they start looking at dollars and cents and saying, well, where else are you going to go? We're gonna keep our operating costs low and product price high, and we're gonna ride it out because you can't do anything about it because we're the single source and we own this. And that works for a while until companies start developing their own, and then all of a sudden that single source vendor goes away. But Six had a point there. We're still aviation maintenance or maintenance for aircraft is a never ending thing. You have daily, weekly, monthly phase checks, all different things that entail a multitude of everything on the aircraft: corrosion, parts changes, cycles, hours, all these things that keep aircraft safe and flying for, decades. Look at the B-52. That son of a gun's almost 100 years in service. And that only can be done. That only can be done with routine maintenance that we all perform in our jobs on a daily. So the problem now is coming back to having enough people to do that job.
Yes.
So we look at the B-52. There, it's been in service 100 years. There are SMEs, subject matter experts on that airframe that have been dead for 50 years. You know what I mean? But now there's current subject matter experts on it. But that's because, it's government who operates it and they can throw money at it to make sure people have that kind of training. However, in the civilian side of things, we don't have that luxury many times, in many cases, to get enough subject matter experts trained. And as the old guard start to retire out, we're not seeing an influx of new hires coming in who have been working with those people, learning, right? It's how the transition is supposed to go. Young learn from the old move on, the young now become the old, and the cycle continues.
Yes.
There's a large gap in maintainers coming in, and I don't know if that's because it's probably a multitude of things, but I don't know if it's because there's just no interest in the hands-on kind of work of people in the generations behind us. I'm just generalizing here. I know not everybody's that way, but is there a lesser of that because everybody wants to be a YouTube star instead? Or is it because the wages still haven't got there yet? Is it because the narrative and how you're viewed as being called a mechanic, which we've discussed in other episodes? I'm sure it's a culmination of a whole bunch of different things. But where we're at is airframes sitting for extended periods of time because there's just not the resources available, be it parts and consumables, and majority people to do the job.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest one is we're the narrative there is off from what it needs to be.
Right. And you hit the nail on the head that another major challenge that we're going through is addressing those gaps, especially when it comes to the adequacy of training programs, the transparency of maintenance practices, the lack of updated training technologies, the knowledge base. That's all factors that are affecting us to this day, and that probably have been for quite some time. But before we really dig into these, a good way to educate yourself and just have a little bit of more insight and picture of some of these issues that we go through as aircraft mechanics is checking out our comics. We, as of right now that I know of, okay, now this is the meme monster me coming out that I know of, we're the only aircraft maintenance focused web comics that's out there besides safety posters and shit. So if all this stuff here doesn't make sense, or you need a little bit more of illustration, check or just need a good laugh, check out some of our comics on Tapas. So going on to what we were saying about getting ahead of the inspections, about understanding what the inspections are. We talked a little bit in the beginning about why these are important and how these happen and how often they happen. So when we say being proactive with inspections, what we're trying to say is we want to plan ahead for when we know what's coming. For example, we know an inspection is going to happen at 400 hours or 400 flight hours, and it's 287. You don't want to plan for that 400 hours at 398 hours, if that makes any sort of sense to people. And the reason why we want to, air quotes, plan ahead is so we can get everything ready or start that lead time cycle for stuff to be there when that plane comes ready for service, like ordering parts, making sure the right people are available, making sure that there's hangar space or workspace available for when that aircraft comes in, so on and so forth. What actually happens is a lot of this maintenance either has to be done on the road or it gets deferred because of where we are today with so much backlog of maintenance.
Keep in mind, you can only defer it for so long.
Yes. And going back to what MVP was saying about the supply stuff, where you have only a single source vendor or you only have so many limited available parts, as these planes pile up, you know, that stuff you can take off the shelf or that stuff you can buy becomes more and more limited, especially if it's a single source vendor. Because if they're only cranking out so much, the likelihood of you saying, I need this part now, or I need this item now, their lead time might be 6 months, 2 years from now, or whenever they have it in their next production cycle to give it to you, assuming they'll even give it to you. And I'm not saying that this is a fault for a lot of companies, but this is a trend that we've been seeing is an inspection comes due and then everyone starts to think that their number one priority. I don't know if anyone else has seen stuff like this, but I certainly have. Like their main moneymaker has to hit an inspection or goes down for maintenance, and they said, okay, let's just knock all these things out because this is our number one revenue maker. And so they push it to the front of the line and they make all sorts of cases, all sorts of stories, all sorts of what have yous to get them to the front of the line. And then it's just sprung up on the people actually doing the work. Like, okay, hey, change of plans. This is not priority one. Get it done. Like, okay, cool. Where's my stuff? Where's my people? Where's my everything? What do you want me to do? Right? And it just causes all sorts of chaos in all these backlogs and all these maintenance, because like the demand just shifted from whatever priorities to another one because so and so said so, but you don't have the means to accommodate. And that's a current problem that we see with getting ahead of inspections. Now, technology has advanced to the point where we have certain things like predictive maintenance software or AI and stuff like that. It's all great. Don't get me wrong. Those are great. But the general, like normal mechanic doesn't fully understand what those are. Like predictive maintenance, what the hell is that? Or AI in maintenance, what is it going to do? Turn the wrench for me, right? And for the average mechanic, they're not going to really deep dive into what inspection's coming next. Maybe their managers will, but the average Joe mechanic is not going to know and or care what's coming up. They just know they got to show up to work. Here comes the task. Here's the tools. Here's the parts. Go do task. So I'm not saying that we're dumb or nothing, but we try to laser focus our attention, because if we don't just keep our minds to the task at hand, we start ballooning out into other what ifs and other scenarios that just derive from our attention of actually doing the work, right? And it's really up to the ones who make all these decisions that have to filter these through. So once the work actually gets into the technician's hands, they're not having to figure it out on the go when the demand and the schedule is piling up on them. And I think that's where a lot of the mistakes tend to happen is management doesn't know and they leave it up to the technicians to know, and they don't have the resources available to figure it out the same way they do. And they just make ends meet as they see fit, or that makes sense to them. You know what I mean?
Well, planning is, I think what you're going with here is planning is attempted to be done in maintenance using via human input or artificial intelligence, computer input. However, as all those systems are garbage in, garbage out. So you can plan and have your parts people, everything allocated for that project. It's going to happen in 200 hours. However, you get down to 2 hours beforehand and there's a shift in priorities. So instead of adjusting at that time at those upper levels, it's left to the lowest denominator, which is maintenance in this case, to adjust that schedule on the fly. Hey, you were going to work on this. Now you're working this. Great. Do we have everything set aside for that? I don't know. Just see what we got and put it together. Okay. Well, then that's when you start taking your resources from one project and putting towards another. So you get that other higher priority done first. Now management or whoever is going back and looking at the other aircraft, and they're saying, all right, what's the status of this? And you're saying, we got to order these three things. No, we already had everything ordered for. What happened to that? Well, when you task priorities, in order to get that done in the time frame allotted, we had to take these resources from this one and apply it to that one. Now we have to get these back on order. Well, that was a 6-month lead time on 2 of those items. I don't know what to tell you. You that's what I did to get the job done in the time frame given. Now I need you to go back and order these other parts with supply and get those on order. And so the can just keeps getting kicked down the road. And I think that's where you're going with the inspection side of it, or at least the planning of.
Right. And then you have said planners or said organizers or project managers, whatever you guys call it in your areas. They would say they would look at you all dumb faced like, well, I put it in the plan. Why aren't you doing it as I planned? I'm like, cool.
Well, you'll find in a lot of these instances, left hand isn't talking to the right.
Yes.
So at one point they were talking. Executives, upper management went to the maintenance control and supply, and they all sat down and said, we have these things coming up. We need to get these things on order, and we want it to start on this date. Everybody thumbs up. The room gives a thumbs up, and they get all those things on order. And then at some point, somebody calls the C-suite upstairs and says, just kidding. I want this done first, and I'm your primary customer, so make it so. And so executives go, great. Sounds good. Yes, boss, we'll get it done. But fail to tell anybody else from the original meeting, i.e. control, supply, whoever. And so as things are just about to kick off with the original plan, they walk in with hand grenades and the pin's already pulled and say, hey, everybody, change the plans. We're doing this now. Make it happen. Toss the grenades and then turn and leave the room. And now everybody is jumping through hoops to try to make it happen. Control is going, okay, we got to meet this schedule. Maintenance, do what it takes. Great. Maintenance does what it takes. And then at the end of that, maintenance comes back and says, we used these, and these from this other aircraft to get this job done. Maintenance control goes, great, I can meet my schedule now. And then they go to supply and shoot an email to them and saying, hey, we got to get these things on order for tail number XYZ. Supply goes, you're dumb. We already have those things in stock. And maintenance control goes, LOL, cool story, bro. But we use those for something else. And supply is going, why didn't you order extra for this? And it just throws inventories and everything off, and it's chaos. Coordinated chaos.
Yes.
One of the biggest things, I think, when it comes to this inspections and stuff is okay, parts and supplies, and yeah, it's a big headache, and it can be a tough sea to navigate through. real rough waters. But I think in today's world, we're running short on people resources. So we don't have, as we said at the beginning, we don't have the people to do the job, or we don't have the experienced people to do the job.
Mm-hmm.
And we're running short on training. So, okay, we might not have the bodies to do it. So let's go hire bodies. Okay, are you going and sourcing seasoned veterans on these specific airframes? No, you're not. I mean, you want them to apply, but if they're they're currently preoccupied in their other positions somewhere else, and lo and behold, let's just face facts, companies aren't going to want to pay top dollar for those people, not realizing it's going to save them money down the road. So they're going to go and get entry level, which is great. We all got to start somewhere. We need people to get in. We need people coming into the field.
Mm-hmm.
However, you can't hire entry level positions and expect top tier performance right out of the gate. And that unfortunately happens more often than not. Well, you're an A&P, right? Or you're a certified airframe, power plant mechanic. Yeah, but I mean, it's a license to learn. Like my experience is the last 22 months in school. Yeah, but you're an A&P, so go do these jobs. I don't have experience on this airframe. Like, I'm not comfortable with just going out there and freewheeling it. So then what do? Okay, hey, 6, you're the seasoned guy. Take MVP and go out there and show them how to do this job. And 6 is going, I mean, yeah, I could do that, but hell's bells, you got me on 6 other high priority taskers over here. Like, what's priority first? All of it's number one, So, so where I'm going with this is we need to invest in training, but it's got to be more than the existing OJT training and computer-based training, CBTs that we unfortunately it just plagues the industry right now. And I'll use an example. One of the first places I worked when I first got hired on, it was at that time, and it's changed since then, but it was no less than 6 weeks of classroom and OJT. And it was a couple of trainers who were assigned to this class, and it was 6 weeks long. And you started off in the morning going through the books, the Gen Fam, and then in the afternoon you went out and put hands to that actual thing you learned about earlier in the morning, like replacing actuators or something, for an example. Mm-hmm. So after that 6 weeks course, you have at least touched every bit of maintenance on that airframe to become what's the word I'm looking for? To become dangerous, I guess. You're still not a SME. You haven't done the job 150 times, but you have done the job, and that makes you useful to those senior guys once you get out on the floor. So they might not say, hey, go and replace that actuator on your own, but they could tell you, hey, go get the bird moved into this hangar, get all the jack stands and support equipment set up, get the bird up in the air, and make sure everything's safe for maintenance. And then at that point, call me, I'll come over and we'll start the actuator replacement. But you know what I'm saying? Like, all those things, I don't have to sit there and hold your hand through each step. You can do all the menial tasks. I can trust you to do all those menial tasks up until the point, and then we get there and say, okay, now let's pull the actuators. And then I watch you do that a couple of times, and depending on who it is and their aptitude, you might go, oh man, I don't need to be here. Cool, you know what you're doing. Call me back when it's time for the second signature or whatever. You're inspected by. We need those kind of trainings. We're I think plagued with what I'm going to call CYA training right now, where it's just the company gives you the most basic things and says, well, you've been trained. Yes. But you're no more confident in the job that you need to do than when you start, than before the training. Mm-hmm. If anything, you might have more questions.
Yes. Hey, I'm a tangent right quick. And this is touching base on basically everything. What I've seen happen of recent, and I spoke about this in previous episodes, where we're adopting a lot of policies and methodologies from places that are a little bit more software related. Example is like Agile, right? Agile is like, I don't know, probably the latest and greatest thing that everybody wants to try out, right? And for those who are a little unversed, agile is it's a development pathway for software, right? But there's a lot of methods and principles that can, in retrospect, be applied to a lot of things, but not everything. And one of the key concepts of agile is flexible schedule, constant or continuous delivery / deployment, and flexible requirements. Now, for software, this makes sense because if you wait 2 years to give you the next software update, your stuff can crash. People can figure out how to hack it, blasey, 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 right? But when certain individuals, decision-making individuals, hear the word agile and they see, oh, okay, flexible schedule, flexible deliveries, blasey, blasey, they say, oh, okay, so this will make my work go faster, right? And that's the general thing, like, oh, agile equals faster. And so they try to apply this to a whole lot of stuff, such as training or how their workshops are set up or how their line is set up and so forth. It sounds cool, but in practice, it's not as cooked up as it sounds. And then so like now you have individuals who are just kind of sped through the line, like what MVP was saying. It turns into a CYA and less about actual retention. And this what like transitions me to another good point that we feel is deserving is how do we recruit / retain talent, right? And one of which, as MVP said, is training. In order for you to have the experience, you need to be able to train them. And sadly to say, a lot of the stuff we've seen nowadays is a lot of the CYA training, as MVP says. It's a lot of computer-based training or read this and now you're air coach trained training. But training
and there's no training plan. You show up as a new hire and you just show up out on the floor and say, okay, I'm ready to start working. And they say, oh, well, have you done this or that? No, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. Oh, well, go talk to so-and-so and get that training. Okay. Hey, I need this training. Oh, well, we don't have that class scheduled for 2 more weeks. So you can do these ones, but you have to wait for that one. Great. So you go back downstairs, you do those trainings, go back down to the hangar and you start doing whatever. And your lead says, hey, go do that job. Oh, I can't. I haven't done the training yet. I told you to go do those trainings last week. Yeah, but they said they didn't have this one scheduled for 2 more weeks. And then, well, what the hell? You're still of no use to me. I don't know what you want from me. So then time goes by, but nobody ever gets back with you and says, hey, we have that training scheduled. They never sent you a training class invite. Nothing like that. Instead, it's like this weird mix of working and trying to figure out what training you need at the same time, but nobody really knows what training you need at the same time because they all had to go through the same nonsense for themselves. and if you really look back, you're like, I don't even remember taking that training, but apparently I did, and there's nothing set in stone as you're a new hire and you're in training course for the first 5 weeks doing all these things, right? You shouldn't even be on the floor at this point. Yes. You should be doing all these things. And, I see the argument where companies say, no, we hired somebody to do the job. We need them on the floor doing the job now. I understand, but unless you're attracting somebody with that airframe experience, then this is the situation you're in. So what good is it to you if they sit in training for 6 weeks or if they're on the floor and kind of dragging their feet along a little bit and asking the lead every 5 minutes if this is the right way to do something? Yeah, I get it. We have maintenance managers and stuff, but still, you have to have some sort of confidence with the system that you're working to be able to do it efficiently and effectively. And if you can read, sure, but you might have a question on interpretation or XYZ, or you're applying some other system knowledge from a different airframe to this and wondering if it's the same. So you're asking those questions. And then your lead just now is like, okay, I'm just going to give me 10 minutes while I finish this and I'll come over and we'll do this with you. So things just get backed up. So you're no further ahead, in my opinion, if you hire the extra body and don't give them the right training,
Right. And
then
then
then just throwing them out to the bay and saying, get after it.
right. And this kind of goes into what we were saying earlier, where there's trained and then there's educated. You know what I mean? And we've talked about this at length in previous episodes. Like, just because I trained you, that doesn't mean you're a SME. And just because you're a SME doesn't mean, you know, you can train people. Excuse me. And going back to what we were saying about, like, you know, get someone senior to you to shadow you or whatnot. That's all fine and great if there's senior people to actually shadow, right? We've mentioned a bunch of times, like, the aircraft aviation maintenance field is slowly dwindling as far as technical knowledge is concerned. A lot of us are getting older now. A lot of us are at the point of retirement, or a lot of us are at the point where we're just incapable of teaching you certain things, right? Because and
I'll say this. I mean, to be able to teach, it is a certain skill set. Like, you can be the most knowledgeable person in the other, but you're no good at relaying that information to others
yes,
in a way that they'll understand. You're a fantastic mechanic. We rely on you 100% because you're just so good at what you do. But if you can't explain that to anybody, then that kind of doesn't do any good to assign anybody to you. You know what I mean?
yeah, or vice versa, right? Like, you're the kind of person who likes to hoard the knowledge to yourself, right? Because you want to be the final button pusher and stuff. Got it, man. Like, that's only gonna last so long before they engineer you out of the process, one way or another. And the only thing you're doing is
or take those people and say, okay, you like to hold information. Good. You guess who's in charge of training all new hires?
what?
You know,
Got
I don't
it.
want to do that. Well, it's that or it's the door. So make your choice.
Right. And as far as maintenance is concerned, we're frequently referred to as the unsung heroes of aviation. I'm sorry to say, pilots, but we are, right. We've kind of secluded ourselves to accepting being called a thankless passion or a thankless occupation. It it's the situation we're in right now, and for some people they're cool with it, but for the most part, like, do it when you're grinding so much and there's not so much as a thank you from it. It kind of sours the culture, if that makes any sort of sense, especially when it comes to ensuring safety and functionality. The expertise and dedication for smooth operation, we can say no, can't stress it enough, is vital. Yet the recognition is next to zero. And when it is recognized, it's always like the same people. You know what I mean? Like, there's a certain in crowd that gets it, or it's just like a blanket pizza party for everybody. Like,
Well, maybe this whole recognition thing is I think maybe is tying into the lack of confidence, right? As a new hire into the industry, if you don't have a good foundation built up, either again, say, well, you went to A&P school. It doesn't make me a subject matter expert on everything aircraft maintenance. It just doesn't. It's a license to work. So companies need to start investing into these training aspects. You got to build the confidence of your people to be able to do the job safely and efficiently and effectively. And I get it. It all costs money. But what are you either spend the money up front or you spend it at the end. If you come through and you give me a good solid foundation where I'm confident, and I'll look at it this way. When I first started out and they would assign a task to me, if I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself in that job because I just hadn't done it before or only done it once or twice, but few and far between were those instances, I got my stomach dropped. Like, I got this pit in my stomach. Oh no, they're going to be expecting whatever, and I'm not sure I can do this. And oh man, I'm nervous. Versus it should be set up to where in the morning meeting, your DOM or whoever, when they're assigning tasks, says, 6, I need you to go bleed the hydraulics on the gear. Great. And he's going, got it. right? And it's just business as usual. So I think when it comes to the recognition and side of things is because maybe it's perceived we aren't confident in our abilities as maintainers, and maybe that exudes to other facets of aviation.
Mhm.
Uh, we're looked at as like maybe that's how we're perceived is unknowledgeable because we're not confident in our own capabilities. Again, not for everybody. Some people do exude that confidence, but until you're that person with that seasoned experience, you're questioning a lot of things you do because you want to do it right and you want to do it safely and you want people, you don't want to cause any incidents and errors. And so companies need to get back to investing into solid training programs, and it's got to be more than just what we're calling OJT, which is you go out and witness somebody else do the job one time and now you're signed off to do the job.
Yes.
That's crap. That's crap. And CBTs. I've
Yes.
never seen a more CYA type of training in my life. And if it's like annual research for fire extinguishers and for timekeeping policies and whatever, sure, fine. But recurring CBT on engine runs, that's just a read through, like that's no good. You should have to sit down and actually run that bird. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I know some companies do that, but some don't. Some it's literally just a reading through a PowerPoint as
Yes.
a recertification. And you're like, what good is that if I actually haven't ran engines in 3 years, but I've taken a recurring CBT on running engines every 3 years? Like I'm not confident myself to run that engine,
Yeah, right. No
and I'm
kidding.
sure others aren't confident in me either. But management is expecting you because you took the training, so you should be able to do it. That I think that's the way. That's the way we have to. The change needs to be made. Is we need to enhance training. And I get it; it's costly, and maybe you don't have the wherewithal or the budgets to hire an entire training department or promote your decent mechanics to now the senior levels, make those senior levels become the new training people. And I get it, not everybody wants to do that, but maybe there's some people are like, hey, I want to get off the road a little bit. And okay, a way you can do this is become our training asset. Train all these new hires and we bring them in. They're with you until you're confident in their capabilities, right? Because we trust you as our current senior. That kind of thing. Now, and I also recognize getting all the training materials to do that job effectively can be costly, which is why there's other schools out there. Look at EASA, for example. They have type rating schools that are months and months to a year or so long.
Mhm.
What was the one we said? It was like 15 months to become type rated on one of those airframes.
Yeah.
Like that is fantastic. And I'm not saying here in the States we need to go that route, but by God, that would be what a way to instill confidence in somebody, is that they've gone to these schools. Like I know Bombardier has a school up in Canada that's, I think it's a month or 2 months long. I think there's different phases of it. And so, but in total, it would be several months long. But you go there and every day you're eat, sleep, and breathing that airframe and every aspect of it. I mean, when you come out of that, you're actually, you get a certification with it. That's sort of like a type rating, but it says you've passed those training requirements for that particular airframe. And Pratt and Whitney has different engine schools for. I think Rolls does as well. I went to a Pratt school down in Texas. It was only a week long, but I definitely came out of it more knowledgeable on that particular motor, which was a 308, than when I went in. So I think, okay, let's use composites, right? Everything is composites now. There's a big push in aerospace to continue using and increasing the use of composites. Why? Because they're strong and they're light. and they're more cost effective than your alloys. So if you don't do composites and stuff every day, like it's not your thing on a production line, or it's not your trade specialty. Many companies that I've worked for have sent people to a composite school called Aberris up in I think it's Reno, Nevada, or somewhere close to there. But everybody that I've talked to, I've never been to it myself, but everybody I've talked to went to it, said it's a fantastic program, and you learn so much in just the span of a week or two that you come back with a confidence in yourself to be able to do those jobs. Now, with that said, in all these trainings, I'm not going to send Six to every training under the sun if he's not going to be doing those particular jobs. If Six isn't my composite tech, he's my engine guy. Why am I going to waste time? I mean, yeah, if we have the funds and the time to do it, hey, Six, this would be a good, gee whiz information for you. But if he comes back and it's back to him working engines as usual, day in and day out for the next 6 months, and then for some reason our composite tech senior is out on vacation and we've got a job we got to get done, I shouldn't be going to Six and going, hey, I need you to go get this job done, because Six is going to go, hey, I'm not confident in doing that. Well, I sent you to the school 6 months ago. Yeah, but hell's bell, I haven't touched anything composite since then. Like I didn't apply beyond that training anything composites when I got back here. So that's the other side of changing the narrative, is we can't expect people, because we sent them through the training once, to become a subject matter expert whenever we need them to be.
I mean, that's actually real life, though. that actually happened. So Six actually did go to a composites training for a week, and Six actually knew quite a bit about composites and how to do it and all the other what have yous that go into it. And then I didn't touch it for close to 6 months, and then here I go, like, hey, Six, we need you to do some stuff with composites. Like, fuck if I know. Like, the last time I touched anything was out of school, and it was, controlled situation, controlled environment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There was a learning curve of I messed it up, versus like, hey, we need you to do this, do it now. Oh, by the way, if you fuck it up, it's going to crash or it's going to break or whatever the case may be. I'm like, yeah, probably not. Just wait for the other guy to come back. I ain't going to do it. Funny you mentioned that. That's a true story.
I mean, and it's true for a lot of people, I myself included, maybe not in composites specifically, but in other areas. But you see it so often. The company wouldn't ask you, hey, the CFO is out on, recovering. They'll be out for a month after the surgery. You said in your educational history, in your degree, you took an entry-level accounting course. So we're going to have you step in and run all the financial reports and report to the shareholders while the CFO's out. What? No, I'm not comfortable in doing that. Well, you said you had this entry-level class. Yeah, 12 years ago when I you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I haven't done anything accounting since then. What the hell are we talking about?
Like, have you seen the math I do if under reg?
Don't you see me using my fingers when I'm doing write-ups in the logbook? Like, what the hell is going on here?
Right. I think your expectations are a wee bit too high.
I think that's become a reality of the situation, because you got the information one time, regardless of the format given. You're now expected by that company to be a subject matter expert, and when you can't perform, you will be chastised for it, and when you attempt and fail, you will be reprimanded for it.
Yeah,
because you had this air quotes training.
Yep. Man, that's life in a nutshell. I want to address really short and fast that about the recruitment message that's being sent. There's a heavy focus on pilots and executives, not just pilots, but also executives, and it almost like gives people this message that if you want to do anything aviation, or if you want to be worth anything in aviation, it's either pilot or executive. And yes, there's other messages like, oh, hey, be in air traffic control, be this and that, but there's like next to no focus on the on hand skill traits. And even more, and if we want to dig in a little deeper, even the education system itself is going less and less on the trades. There's all sorts of articles and podcasts about exactly this, but the criticism of the imbalance of the contribution that every single team member makes to the overall result is just not present. And whenever you see anything about aircraft maintenance, it's always like just this freebie, give them one kind of attitude. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I guess you're part of the team. You know what I mean? It's very isolationist, in my opinion, and a lot of the focus kind of dims once maintenance starts coming into the mix, or it's like one of those lesser skilled labor jobs kind of feel. Um, but hey, as we continue on our this discussion on the challenges and opportunities in maintenance, I'm gonna take a quick moment to spotlight a small business organization, and that's redefining leadership in various sectors, including aviation. And that is Leadership AF. Leadership AF is a dynamic platform dedicated to empowering leaders to break free from traditional norms and lead with authenticity. Their mission is centered around helping individuals embrace their spirit of leadership and encourage them to defy the status quo and foster innovations. One of their standout offerings is this book that we had the privilege of reading. It's Leadership Unchained, Lead Rebelliously, Defy the Norm. This book challenges conventional leadership approaches, urging leaders to cultivate environments where creativity and critical thinking thrive. It's not just about managing teams, it's about inspiring them to reach new heights and tackle challenges head on, much like what we're discussing today. So if you're looking for a chance to enhance your leadership skills or foster a more engaged team culture, check out Leadership AF on LinkedIn and grab a copy of their book on Amazon. The links are going to be in our descriptions and in our socials. Okay, back to the conversation.
And I'll add to that. After you read the book and check out some of the videos on LinkedIn or whatever, and you have any further questions or like something explained a little bit more in depth, reach out to the gentleman who runs Leadership AF. Very responsive. We'll get back to you, and I'm certain we'll have a more in-depth answer, or at least an answer to your questions or further explanations. So yeah, definitely check out Leadership AF. Now I want to get back to the conversation you had mentioned about growth. So, yes. Not everybody wants to become a CEO. Not everybody wants to be a corporate executive or whatever else. But we do need those kind of people to a degree in maintenance. And I think we need to, especially in the civilian realm, I think we need to capitalize on that a little bit more, because oftentimes it's your maintainers and your director of maintenance. And it's one person, the DOM, trying to run your finances, run your scheduling, run your employee shift rosters, and dealing with call outs and moving people shifts around, XYZ. I think what would benefit many of these places would be, you have your DOM, but then he's got the push buttons for different the different aspects of maintenance. So, again, I know all this ties in with budgets and whatever, but I think there's ways to do it to give, regardless of situation, in the company to promote growth within for your maintenance group. So you have your DOM, right? Head of all maintenance. And then maybe they go to MVP as the push button and say, hey, what's the status on our phase maintenance in the hangars? And that's my focus as the manager for scheduled maintenance and phase maintenances and all those kind of things. And then, okay, what's the status of going on my line with line maintenance? And that's 6. All right. So 6 is my go-to for statuses on that. And okay, maybe you have one that's deals with the personnel roster side of things. Hey, and the training aspect, right? They're the ones that are making sure new hires are getting what they need to get done. Research are happening, but they're also the person that if somebody calls out sick that day, they call that person, and that person's responsible with dealing with those kind of things. And then maybe you have one, and then your DOM, right? So they're collecting an all report that they're feeding to those corporate executives, but then the DOM focuses with that and the financials of maintenance. So they're the one, the DOM's going through those reports and going and saying, hey, CFO, I need X amount of budget to go hire two more people. One of those I need I want to pay this much because I need a seasoned person. The other one can be entry level. Those kind of things. I think that's how you can really divide and conquer and make maintenance a little bit more streamlined, but also gives people room for growth within your organization.
Yes, and by all means, please advertise this stuff. If it's going on in your organization, advertise it as such, and reward it as such. I would say, because there's a lot of times where I've been in organizations where people didn't even know certain positions exist. Right? It's kind of like one of those behind the curtain, inherent part of the process kind of stuff. Right? Like they know what happens, but they don't know how it happens. And for some people, that's a cool thing. That's cool for them. Like, I don't care how it works. I just want to know that it works. Others, they want to pursue some type of professional growth, some kind of job opportunities besides being on the line, or how to take their line skills and branch out and become more skilled, useful, and essential. And then if these positions are more advertised or at least more promoted, then they'll have more goals to reach for. Because that's another thing too. Like when you're in an organization and you know for a fact that you've peaked in a position or in as far as professional advancement, your motivation just kind of slowly ebbs and drops. Right? Like, well, what more am I going to do? Just get a 1% raise because of inflation or whatever have you? It doesn't break you out of that. You kind of just slowly slink into this little bubble where you turn into that person that hoards information because there's no drive to want to do anything about it or do anything different. So having those positions to be made and then having it as available knowledge for everyone to understand and strive for is another big one. Another thing I would mention besides that is showcasing the success stories of the people actually doing the work, right? We see all the time where you see pilots hit certain hours to get a prize, or you see certain people like sharing their stories on how they accomplish certain things. To me, that's fine. That's fantastic. But it's a lot of meme monster stuff. You know what I mean? Like, the kind of stuff that at least gets me going is when I see start to finish progress, kind of like time lapse stuff. Like someone building a shed from start to finish, like bare bones land to finished product. This can actually be like something you could show to students where like they take like this hunk of metal in pieces airplane and then show a finished product where it's flying and all that stuff, right? And then all the people that contributed to making it happen, stuff like that. Kind of like how you see a space shuttle or a something from space being made from scratch, and you see it launch into the air and actually do its job. Everyone celebrates. Not saying it has to be that grand, but those little things make all the difference. And then going back to the training piece, as MVP and I have been stressing for pretty much all of this episode, is there needs to be a good all-around focus, not just on the pencil whipping of things, right? Because there's a lot of apprenticeships that at least I've been in, where a lot of it was basically pencil whipped, right? Like, well, you've been in here this long, you should know it, right? Pencil whip, pencil whip, pencil whip. Now, I would say I'm grateful that someone would just readily have that level of confidence, but who's to know? Right. And that's a double-edged sword if you really think about it, because it may be months, years down the line before you touch this again. And then that knowledge becomes stale, and then they're expected for you to just know how to become relevant in that field because you've done it at least once. And I would say also like just creating that supportive environment structure, not like platitude wise, but actually like giving a shit about the people you're with, like beyond workplace facilities, beyond just management checking on you, like full on like supporting you. Because we've all seen those where manager says, "Hey, I got your back. I got you. I will have you if you're right." But as soon as the pressure's on them, now the story changes. You know what I mean? So having at least that where the manager can at least have that level of confidence to put his foot down and say, "No, this person is right because they did it by the book," or whatever the case may be. And this can have all sorts of different channels that you can use, like mentorship programs, work-life balances, etc. All the typical HR stuff. But what I'm trying to make on that end is like you got to take a look at what your environment, what your situation is like, and figure out what's valuable to your people, and then adjust accordingly. Because if they're already getting paid fat, or they're already getting paid fine, but their work is still mediocre, then maybe the problem's not the pay. You know, maybe it's something else going on, or maybe or one way or the other. I can't tell you the end all fix all because it depends on that situation. So,
If you'd like us to look at your situation, reach out.
Yes, please. I mean, we're all about
give us some information to digest and read through and disseminate, and we'd love to help you reach a resolution.
Yes, and on that note, feedback and develop is probably the one thing we love to give, but the one thing we don't like to process. You know what I mean? I mean, especially from mechanics, because when we give feedback, it's usually in one form, and it's usually not safe for work form. You know, the typical "this is trash. I hate this. Why are we doing it this way?" Etc. 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 I'll admit we love to complain, but it's
just a way to prevent physical violence from manifesting.
Yes,
it's like a blow off valve.
Yes, right. Or the overage of pressure. But at the same time, right, like a lot of this feedback, as negative as some of them may sound, it has some value, right? Like if 12 different people are saying the same thing, you might have a cause here, you know? So not just taking the feedback, but also be willing to process it, really dissect and understand it. When 12 people say like, "Hey, I am very tired and you guys ask too much of us," maybe that's a sign to like really just peel back the onions. Like, what's really going on here? Like, I think my planning's fantastic. Like what I have seen a lot of people do is they get the feedback that they don't want to hear and they'll instantly start defending it, right? They go instant defensive mode and start saying like, well, this is, if you don't do this, then this happens kind of thing. Now, granted that might be the case, but that's also kind of a sign that, hey, maybe we need to communicate this better, or maybe we need to figure out why this is being taken in such a negative way, or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? So, and then once you have the feedback, that's when you guys can start going to the drawing board, start figuring out where are the problem areas and prioritize those accordingly. That's another one. It's like, it's one thing to hear it. It's another thing to process it. It's a third thing to actually do something about it. Right? Now, again, we understand resources are limited and you can only handle the top 80, the 20% of issues that's causing 80% of the problems. But it's one thing to tackle one big thing and hoping it fixes everything, than to just kind of get the small wins and just hope and like slowly build up to the big win, if that makes any sort of sense to anybody. But definitely, besides just processing, you need to do something about it, right? Okay, that was a lot. That was definitely a lot. So we definitely recommend, as far as actionable stuff, is definitely take a look at your guys' training, take a look at your mentoring, hear the feedback, and then do something about it. Right. This is where that concept of agile and lean and all that stuff. This is where it really factors in. Is you try something different, and you let people give you insights about it. And if that doesn't work, then we retool it. We look at different pathways and then try it again, and so on and so forth. That's where agile comes into play, where it really helps, is that feedback process. Because if your instant go-to is to defend your system, saying that no, it's fine, you're the one who's fucked up, then you're gonna lose out a lot more than you gain. Oh, okay, that was definitely a lot. But also, again, for the new kids that are trying to come in, we highly recommend that if you are brand new to aviation, you're brand new to anything, start looking at areas where you can have the foot in the door. Maybe not necessarily work on it, but at least get that insight, kind of like your air quotes discovery day, as what pilots would do, right? They'll go on a plane, they'll get a flight, they'll do once around the patterns, like, okay, this is for me. I'm willing to blow $5,000 for a license. But for mechanics, it's a little bit easier. You can actually go to a hangar, see people working, or you can go to an expo and see how it looks and all that. Like, yeah, I can see myself doing this. Or go to the AMC, the aircraft maintenance competition, see people actually doing the job. Like, oh, that looks freaking awesome. I want to do that. Right. And another,
Just just try to find your niche if you can. But be willing to take on a new niche if you have to. Find the voids and be actionable in filling them.
yes. And then likewise, we mentioned that recognition of the maintenance teams is vital. Celebrate the mechs, improve training. We've said this thousands upon thousands of times. And then likewise, the mentoring piece. Even if you're a year senior to the person next to you, that is technically senior, and that involves some form of mentorship. Doesn't have to be formal or anything crazy like that. Just be like, hey, it's been a year. I've been here a little bit longer. I have an idea of what's going on. Even if that person doesn't want it, just get used to communicating things better. And that helps fundamentally. And then eventually that stuff permeates and branches out, and it becomes contagious, if that makes any sort of sense.
Mentorships are fantastic. I can attest to it, as I have a couple of them myself. And not me doing the mentoring, it's me being mentored. It's really helped navigate some different parts of the industry.
Yes. And at the very least, the mentoring piece, it helps you cultivate a mindset, right? It's not just about solving problems. It's about giving that mindset so that person that you're talking with or you're communicating with can creatively find their own solutions. That's the goal of a lot of it. It's not just to like make them be better. So just kind of give them an idea of how they can help creatively make themselves better, if that makes any sort of sense. But hey, yeah. Any further thoughts on anything, Mr. MVP?
About Leadership AF, reach out to us if you'd like help in navigating your own personal situation. Love to help.
Most definitely. We're always here. We're always available, and we're willing to learn too. If we have screwed up in any way, shape, or form in some of the stuff we said, please, by all means, let us know. This helps us cultivate a unified message and also educate ourselves on what's actually happening on the field. Right. But hey, let us know what you guys think. Let us know in the comments, our social medias, email, on our website, whichever is the easiest way for you. The best way to have conversations like this and share stories where we can all learn and develop together is on the Discord channel via our Patreon. And then likewise, hey, check out our comics on Tapas, where we highlight a lot of the stories that happened on aircraft maintenance and put it in the comic form, which again is probably the only active webcomic that focuses on aircraft maintenance. Hey.
I think that's a factual statement.
I'm pretty sure it is. I mean, shy of safety posters, that's pretty much it. Which is kind of sad if you think about
those
it.
don't count as comics.
I mean, it makes us laugh. Don't get me wrong.
yeah, in a very sad way.
In a very sad way, yes. But likewise, if you have stories and you want to share, or you have people in your maintenance facilities who need some recognition, share those stories with us too, and we'll gladly highlight them in a future episode if possible. But on that note, thank everyone for watching. Thank everyone for listening, and we'll see you on the next one. Have a good one, everybody. We'd like to take a moment to give a heartfelt shout out to our fantastic patrons. Your unwavering support is the magic behind the show, helping us produce thrilling episodes, keep our gear in top shape, and create awesome merch just for you. With special shout outs goes to SaKonna, Eric Shaw, Daniel Liang, Mike Sherwood, Caleb Stockdale, Carm M, Dan Schubert, and Ryan Freshour. Thank you all so much for your support and patronage. If you enjoy our show, why not join our Patreon family? You'll unlock a whole slew of perks, including exclusive access to our private Discord community, special discounts, early bird access to our merch, and a front row seat to sneak peeks of our comics and other exciting projects. And if you're feeling adventurous, don't forget to strut your stuff as an aviation aficionado by visiting our store at cancelformaintenance.com. For those who appreciate a touch of class or rugged charm, check out our affiliate Rockwell Time at rockwelltime.com. Use the code CX, the number 4, MX, snag a sweet 10% off your new favorite watch. It's time to elevate your game. Got a burning topic idea or want to be a guest on our show? Drop us a line on the contact us section of our website, cancelformaintenance.com. We're all ears and we're eager to bring your ideas to life. Stay connected with us on social media. Find us on Facebook at Cancel for Maintenance, or follow us on Instagram and Threads at Canx, CANX, for Maintenance Podcast. Hey, we love hearing from you. Be sure to check out our comics. We might just be the only webcomic focused on aircraft mechanics available on the Tapas app. Like, share, subscribe, and leave us your thoughts. We want to know what you all think. Thank you all for being the incredible community that you are. Your support means the absolute world to us, and we can't wait to catch you on the next episode. Until then, keep them flying.